Hello YouTube, hey everybody out there. Hope you're doing good. Sorry it took me so long to get this video out. Kind of got out cycled at work this week and just had to delay this until I could get some more time to settle down. And of course, yesterday was Saturday, so that's all college football day there. But glad I just want to get this out here today, talking about kind of some conclusions I drew out of my get home evolution last week and tested my get home bag that hopefully a lot of you have watched so far. And those of you who have watched, thanks, and thanks for all the comments. Hope everybody learned something from it. I know I did, and that's what I wanted to cover here. But first thing, there's a couple of the facts that went into this evolution. I was carrying about 1.5 gallons of water. I was carrying enough for 3 meals. I was planning for 1 meal a day. It was gear only for the summer. It was tailored just for summer, type of deal. So when it comes probably later September, I'll probably start retooling and packing a little heavier. And I moved right about 26 miles total, and I drank all the water, and I only ate one of the meals during that time, which obviously I was only moving for just over 14 hours. Was a total time, not moving the whole time, but that was the total time that I took the video and whatnot. Almost 15 hours, sorry. It was 8:30 that night till 11:30 the next day. So, but some conclusions I took from it. Obviously, it was a reality check for my plan and what would really be needed. Water is the limiting factor in the desert. Water drives everything you do. It's going to be whether or not you move, or you're sitting down and waiting to find some, or you're going to have to move to where it is. You're not moving to your destination. Maybe if water's closer, you don't have any. That's more important. So that's definitely a factor you have to plan around continuously if you're on foot in particular. If I carry more water, though, it slows you down. So there's that trade-off. And moving at night is supposed to alleviate that a little bit. Not having to drink quite as much. But as you can see, still moving mostly at night. I went through quite a bit of water. Food, could I give up maybe 1 meal? The only thing is, would I have be able to get food later? Because I'd still need that for later. But one thing that I consider, like I mentioned earlier, was in the videos, this is worst case scenario for me. Where I started from is the furthest away from home that I would want to be before I started walking. My plan would be able to get, if I can get to that location, if I have enough gas. The plan is to have at least a half a tank of gas or more, and that'll get me to where I started from. A half a tank in reality gets me further than that, but I was thinking with idle times and everything, in a situation where there's a lot of traffic, it's going to limit me to that location, or it potentially could. So that's an absolute worst case where I started from. It's not by all means ideal or my primary, but I was just trying to test it for a worst case scenario. But that load that you carry is going to be a primary factor in how you plan your distance, and whether or not you can get from resources to resources. And everybody's situation is different, so I'm kind of pinpointing this on mine. But if you can refill every 5 miles, and you know this for sure, it makes it so much easier. You can, in the wintertime, when I go in the winter, I can go with a quart of water or 2, because usually there'll be snow available or more running water, and it makes it a lot easier. So I can move that down. I can carry that bulky jacket or whatever else I need to keep warm, a sleeping bag or a light bag, and more whatever else for warmth. But one thing this scenario did not account for at all, as far as time, is security. When you're moving, looking out for other gangs. Obviously, I was next to the road. In the nighttime, not as much. It'd be easier to not be seen, just a little bit off the road. But in the daytime, in the desert, you can see for miles and miles and miles and miles. You're not moving without being seen. And if security is a concern, which in a lot of situations, WROL in particular, it's going to be critical that you take into that consideration. Being tracked, somebody observing you from a distance that can, if they have a vehicle and gas, to come after you to get you or whatever. So security was not even a factor in this as far as the way I moved. So take that into consideration as well. I would have to slow down considerably You know, when you think about NVGs at night, somebody could see me from or an IR device, could see me from miles and miles. Same in the daytime with binos, miles and miles away. So that really can make it rough to be able to move because there's no cover concealment out there, as you can see from the videos, I'd imagine. So that then wasn't accounted for at all. And the type of situation you get into is going to vary, you know, and obviously that would affect whether or not you even left wherever you are, that security situation. Obviously, environmental dangers are a hazard. The heat is my primary one that I was worried about in this scenario. Wild animals can be coyotes. I talked about them a little bit. They were kind of non-existent out there for some reason, but they can be potentially hazardous, and that's something I always plan for. Be able to coyotes are usually easy to scurry away. They won't usually come near humans a whole lot, but if things get bad for them, if things are bad for humans, you never know what they're getting into, and if they start finding food near humans, they might start getting a little more aggressive. So always be considering things like that. And everybody's got their own wildlife in their own area. Think about that. And also environmentally, you know, with weather, hazardous storms, stuff like that. If you're moving out in tornado country and those big storms roll up, you guys know how to get to ground, and you know the importance of that. But how along your route, how's that going to affect you if you run into some certain hazards? Like on my route, if there was flash flooding, was there any of those hazards in that area? When there wasn't a whole lot of washes out there, that's not really a primary concern in that area because they don't get a whole lot of flash flooding up that high. But if you lower some down in the lower areas where the washes are in Southern California in particular, flash flooding can come into effect. And there's a further on as you get towards the mountains too, there's flash flooding that can come into effect. So that's a concern for me when it comes to environmental. And if you're bugging out in a natural disaster, that's already an environmental hazard. If it's flooding, tornadoes, if you know, obviously you'd stay at home, but if, let's say your house was destroyed and you had to leave with what you had, and there's more storms that come along after that, that would be a critical situation. Snowstorms, obviously if you had to get you're getting out of your truck and you run out of gas, you're freezing in your car, and you got to get out and start hiking, you're automatically thrown into that environmental danger, and learning how to get through that. And we'll talk about more about the winter. Hopefully this winter I don't want to get into that, so, and show some of that as well and get out there in it. But those are all going to affect your movement plans and how fast you can go, or how fast you want to go. If you're trying to get away from environmental dangers, you're going to want to go faster, and traveling lighter and packing less equipment that may be something you need to do. Another thing I didn't do in this scenario, I didn't really prep for the actual movement. I didn't go into a lot of preparation, like getting good rest, eating. I talked about that in the video. I didn't eat a whole lot that day. It was just kind of the way it worked out. I didn't plan it that way. It just kind of worked out that way, and I ended up, you know, eating some Subway on the way up there, a Subway sandwich, and I think I had a apple that day and something else, and it just kind of worked out. I wasn't really nutritionally ready to go for that. Hydrated maybe a little bit, but not like, you know, you would be prepared for a long march or long run or anything else. But that's something, you know, every day, taking consideration your nutrition. You want it to be in a constant state of upkeep, so that if you never know what's going to happen. But I think that's something I know I have a problem with. You know, I think probably most of us do, is just eating good all the time and nutritious. But you never know when that's going to happen, and you can be prepared to do that. So that's going to affect your movement too, not just not being properly hydrated or eating properly when it does happen. So I really think we overestimate our abilities or our capabilities. Another thing I didn't prepare for, I didn't prepare any of my clothing. I talked about my clothing. I have in my bag. I just brought that one pair of pants that I preferred. It's not like it does anything special. With my boots and I put on my shoes or my socks, I didn't really prep anything with that. I just put them on and went. You can do things from foot powder, moleskin, putting moleskin on your feet, things like that to prevent injury prior to, just like you would if you go out in training, or if you know you have common problems. I didn't do any of that, and that's part of why my feet ended up the next day. I had a few blisters on my toes and one on the back of one of my heels, and then one of my heel caused one on the toes. That's what happens when you start walking other than the way you want to, is it causes injuries other places. and those blisters just accumulate because you're walking wrong or funny, however you want to put it. And but that was, I didn't make any preparations in that, and it just went out there and did it. So what you can do prior to is prep that, but I didn't do any of that. Just like if you had to grab that bag and go. Now I could have stopped along the way. I didn't. I just wanted to see how it would work out, and I ended up getting some blisters. I talked about it a little bit. My feet were a little painful, and that was part of the reason I was going so slow towards that next morning. Was those blisters started accumulating, and they just get raw and sore, and it's just not fun. If you couldn't tell, it wasn't very fun. But I would definitely urge anybody to revise their movement plans to max of 15 miles a day, or 15 miles in a 12-hour period. And your physical fitness level and everything else, and what you're carrying. Obviously, if you got a bug out bag that's much larger than what I was carrying, I really think 15 miles is your limit in a day period. When you take all of the other things into consideration, from security on down through the environmental factors and everything else. And if you have a family and kids, you're looking at, I think, 10 miles max. And by all means, comment here and let's talk about this, because everybody I think needs to be thinking through this about really realistically, how far can you get away? If you go to bug out and you're getting out 10 miles, what does that really accomplish for you? And I think that's why we're starting to see a lot more on YouTube, or I've seen more where everybody's talking about bugging in. I'm bugging in, I'm staying home, because the realization's there that bugging out is not the situation you want to get into. Even if you're trying to get to your retreat, how far away is that? And if you can't get there by vehicle, or if it's more than one load of fuel away, one fuel tank, or what you can carry in fuel, then further than you can carry, and you get it and hike it, what's the reality on that? And that's where you get into caches and everything else. And like I said, if you can go cache water and food every 5 miles or whatever, so that you don't have to carry it, that can greatly lessen what you have on your back, which that gives you the opportunity to carry clothing and other essentials that you might need at your bug out location, or during your route, from everything from ammunition to saws to tools to supplies of any type. So the caches can definitely alleviate. But I would prefer to have a full tank of gas, and if I have a full tank of gas and 10 gallons of gas, that would alleviate me having to get out at all and hike. I think I talked about if it was an EMP, I would be really out of luck. I'd have to really look at getting a bicycle or something to do my route at all, period, to get home from work to there. But a 10-gallon gas and a full tank, and I can make it all the way home. I am 99% sure of, even with idle times and having to sit in traffic and things. There's ways to manage your fuel during that trip. But anything you can do, any type of plan or thing, obviously security, there's security in numbers. If you're looking at a get home plan like I was talking about, if I'd had somebody out there with me to split the load with, as far as water and food and things like that, and when it gets colder, if you had to carry a shelter, being able to split up carrying the shelter, things like that can help you. And it also helps with security, maintaining security with somebody else, and gives you presence in numbers is always good. So if you had a coworker or something that lived nearby or something, that would be ideal, I think. And we didn't really talk about that, but moving in numbers, it's going to leave a bigger footprint, but it also gives you greater security to a certain extent. As long as somebody's capable, your same capabilities. Obviously, if one of you has much greater capabilities than the other, you can limit each other, or you can maybe benefit. Maybe that one guy's good at something you're not good at, and you're good at one thing, so that would be good. But you got to be able to trust them, obviously, and that's a huge thing. If you're taking somebody to your location, you got to be able to trust them with whatever you have in your preparations. So definitely I would look at planning on changing my profile, and I hope everybody takes something from this and able to plan your own plans accordingly. But we'll talk to y'all later.